Yo, she's so awesome, dude. What's up? Today we're gonna be talking about one of the most amazing and the most coolest female Christians that ever walked this planet. We're gonna be talking about Joan of the Arc. Oh my goodness, brother. But before we get into the video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because these videos actually take a really long time to make. But yeah, without further ado, let's talk about how cool she was. So Joan was born and raised in a place called Domremy. It was a small village in France, and her parents were actually farmers, and so was she. And they would do stuff like grow food, and they would tend to their animals, and they lived that farmer life. While Joan was actually growing up, there was a war that was really active at the time called the 100 Years' War, and it was basically a big war going on between Germany and France, and it resulted in, how war should result in, people were, getting smoked, food was getting taken, and a lot of people were really scared. And then one day when Joan was around 13, she started hearing voices, and she claimed that the voices were actually saints. So like Saint Michael, Saint Margaret, and the saints had told her that she had a job from God. And the saints had told Joan, yo, you need to help Prince Charles, and you need to save France. Prince Charles, at the time, was the person that the saints told Joan that he was supposed to be king. So the saints are like, yo, you need to help old boy become king so that way you can save France. And, Joanne's like, bet. And you gotta think, Joanne's like she's like a little girl. So she's like, bet, I got you. And then when Joan had told people what she heard, people, using reason, they thought she was crazy. She was like, yeah, you don't actually hear saints. But Joan, she actually believed what she heard. And she's like, nah, I'm finna go save France. And you gotta think, at the time, women being in war was, unheard of. So when you, told, oh, a woman going to war, they're like, yeah, whatever. And then Joan knew that she had to talk to Prince Charles, but she knew that, they weren't just gonna let an everyday farmer girl see the prince. And then Joan kind of, finally convinced some men to take her to Prince Charles, and they disguised Joan as a boy, and they had to go through long enemy territory. It was very dangerous at the time. Going through enemy land was was a sleeping wish. Can't actually say the real thing because YouTube would take down this video. But they got her through there, and they had to get her to the prince. You getting educated so far? You enjoying the video? Oh man, you should like, comment, and subscribe. And then when Joan got to the castle, Prince Charles, oh man, y'all gotta listen to this. Prince Charles knew she was coming, and he hid among his men. So, to put this into perspective, if you walked into a group of people trying to find that person, it'd be hard because there was a group of people. She goes in, and she walks directly towards Prince Charles. Keep in mind, she has never seen this dude at all. So she just walks towards him, and Prince Charles is like, what? What? It was so crazy because Joan had never seen who Prince Charles was. She only heard of him, but she had never seen him. So walking up towards him, she didn't know, it was crazy, dude. Bro, how am I gonna? And then Prince Charles is like, yo, how did you know it was me? And Joan is like, yo, this gonna sound crazy, but God told me. And Prince Charles is like, yeah, whatever. And then she's brought in by church leaders, and the church leaders start questioning her, giving her questions again and again and again and again. But Joan never got any of them wrong. And then they finally came to the conclusion that, maybe she's legit and maybe she's telling the truth. There's like, oh, whoa. Maybe God actually sent her. Bro, oh my goodness, dude. And then Prince Charles, slowly but surely started to believe Joan. And he goes up to Joan and he's like, okay, here, take these. He gives her armor and he gives her a horse. And she finds a sword hidden in the church because the voices had been like, yo, there's a sword, go get it. And it was crazy. It was just crazy because everybody was getting shocked. They're like, whoa. And then, bro, listen how cool she is. She walks up to the French army, right? An entire army. And she's like, yo, I'm leading y'all. And at first they start laughing. They're like, oh yeah, whatever. And then she starts speaking. And for some reason, they just start believing her. They're like, oh yeah, okay, bet. Oh, okay. Commander. And Joan wasn't there to smoke people. She actually, other soldiers would carry swords. She didn't carry a sword. She carried a big banner that had God's name on it. And she's just like, yeah, I didn't come here to save France. Well, no. She's like, I didn't come here to smoke people. I came here to save France. Yo! She's so awesome, dude. She pulls up to a war with a banner. It has God's name on it. She's like, I didn't come here to fight. I came here to save. Yo, that's so awesome. That's so cool, dude. I'm sorry, but you gotta give credit where it's due. Like, that's so cool. Bro, y'all don't get how cool this actually is. At the time, women going to war was, like, shunned upon. It wasn't even a thing. So, a woman pulling up to the a French army with nothing but a banner at the front lines of it that had God's name on it. That was so cool. Like, it was a lot of people don't actually take the time to realize how cool that actually is. Bro, and you know, Joanne, like all of the greats, she was given crap for what she did. Like, she was at the front of the army, and like, she didn't have a weapon. Like, it was crazy that a farmer's girl was going to war with like another country, and like, they were just her soldiers were like mocking her, calling her the shepherd's girl, but Joanne didn't care. Like, she should. And the English had actually took a city in France called Orleans. I could be saying that wrong, but please forgive me. Called Orleans, and they knew if they lost it, they'd be done for, but they needed help. Guess who pulls up? And then Joanne pulls up on a horse holding the banner, and when people see her, they just start getting hyped, bruh. Like, oh my goodness, bruh. She pulls up with no weapon, mind you. She's like, I've come here to save France, and I brought God with me. And then the English saw Joanne, and they started mocking her, and they started being like, women going to war, but they didn't know who, Joanne had brought the Lord Almighty with her, bro. It was crazy. And then baby girl just starts demanding action. Like, she goes up to the French. Like, you gotta think, the French is on her side, and they're scared because, you know, it's war. You can be afraid. But she goes up to them and is like, yo, if we fight, we will win. And they see this, and they start getting encouraged. They're like, yeah, let's go. Yo, it was crazy, dude. Like, it was so awesome. Oh, my goodness, bro. It's like, oh, my, I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's just so cool, dude. Like, I'm not kidding. And so Joanne pulls up on the English, and she's like, yo, leave now or God's gonna punish you. And they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. But some actually felt that authority, and they were like, oh, I don't know. Maybe she's actually telling the truth. And, bro, Joanne and her homies start sliding on them, bro, and they start fighting as hard as they possibly can. And the English actually, they fought so hard that the English actually started, hoodies going up. They fought so hard that the English actually fell back. That's how, oh my goodness, bro. Let me tell you how cool this girl is. So she's riding on her horse, right? She's riding towards the English, and she gets like an arrow, right? Go phew, and it hits her in the shoulder, and she like flops back, and then she gets back up. And she pulls the arrow out of her like thing, and she continues going. Yo, oh my, yeah. Bro, like, she pulls up, and she whoops them, and then by the way, she won. They win that. Like, that's crazy! Yo, the amount of respect she got after this battle was actually so deserved. Like, she pulls up back to, Prince Charles, like, where he's at, and they start cheering, like, Joan, I keep calling her Joan. Her real name's Joanne, don't forget. But she pulls up, and generals that once doubted her are now respecting her. Now, Joanne went from, you gotta think, Joanne at the time of this was just like a farm girl. Now she went from being a farm girl to a war leader. Like, it was so cool. And then, like, Joanne goes up to Prince Charles, and she's like, yo, it's time for you to be king. But Prince Charles wasn't sure, because homie was still afraid of, like, his enemies. But Joanne didn't care. She's like, yo, you're gonna be king. Don't worry about them. And listen, for Prince Charles to be crowned, he actually had to go to a place called Reims. It was basically a place to where French kings were crowned, but Prince Charles was afraid to go there because he knew, because at the time, Reims, if I'm even saying that right, was filled with enemies, and he knew that, like, if he had to get through them, it'd be a challenge. But Joanne was like, don't worry, we'll take them all by one. Yo, like, it was crazy, dude. She got done doing it. Oh my goodness, dude. And she basically pulls up, right? Her Prince Charles and her homies pull up to Reims, and they're like, they had heard of the battle beforehand, so they're like, some of them were really afraid to actually go up against Joanne, and a lot of them just surrendered. They didn't want to fight her. Some towns did fight back, but Joanne she just straight up smoked all of them, and she had her band. She always had She always had, that's the devil right there, get off me. She had her banner, right, with God's name, and she wrote, no fear, no fear. And then Prince Charles is seeing, like, Joanne just, like, whooping butt, and he starts to believe, like, oh man, maybe she really was sent by God. And he was like, he started believing her. He was like, oh, okay, but I guess she is who she says she is. And then on July 17th, July 17th, 1429, Prince Charles was crowned King Charles VII. And now Joanne whispers to homeboy, now God's will is done. So cool. She's so cool. Y'all don't know how cool she is. She's so dope. And you gotta think, Joanne had came what she came to do, right? She like made it to where King Charles is now king, and now she's like, but she wasn't done. Homegirl wasn't done. She was like, yo, I'm gonna push the English all the way back. I want them out of France. Joanne had told King Charles, like, yo, we gotta keep fighting, but King Charles, now he's king, so he's not trying to listen to Joanne. He's like, yo, no more war. We need to make peace instead. And then Joanne, she doesn't listen at all. So she gets her own soldiers and she goes down to the English. She goes down to the English and their allies because she still believed God was with her. And then Joanne pulls up to Paris where, like, they were strong, and she said she wanted to free the city. And then as Joanne led an attack upon them, she got an arrow, like, hit her in the leg, and she's like, because, you know, an arrow to a leg kind of really hurts. And the soldiers, like, pulled her back, but she still didn't refuse. She fought hard, but the battle was lost, and it was much harder than she had expected because she went in there with confidence because she believed God was still with her. And instead of King Charles actually making peace, instead of him actually helping Joanne, he like called Joanne back and he wanted to make peace with his enemy. And Joanne was shocked. She was like, yo, I made you king like 2 seconds ago. But Joanne had ignored King Charles' orders and she kept fighting, and she wanted to actually like she went to a land called Capien. I could be completely wrong. That's probably not how you say that. I could be butchering the pronunciation. But she went there and she wanted to free these people. And it's like a small city. So she's like, okay, bet. And, you know, long story short, she gets captured. And her greatest battle was about to begin. Not on the battlefield. Not with swords. But in court. She was going to court. She was being tried. Bro, that's great. Like, imagine you saving an entire, like, basically doing what Joanne did and then getting put on trial because you actually wanted to follow through with the plan. Yo, bro, I'm like leaking red from my nose. Yo, bro, like what? Oh my goodness, bro. Like, what is this? Oh my goodness, dude. Like, oh my, bro, I'm leaking blood. I can't actually say the real thing, but that's crazy, dude. Look at that. Like, bro, what? And then the enemies had took, what's her name, Joanne, to a dark prison, and she was basically kept there. She was 19, by the way. She was kept there, and it was crazy to think about because Joanne had done a lot, and for her to be treated like that was really weird. And the people who did capture Joanne weren't English, but they sold her to the English. So they had took her and they had sold her to the English, and this was very bad for Joanne because the English was the people she went up against. And the English didn't want her to get smoked. They didn't want to smoke her because then the people would see her as a martyr. But now they wanted to hold a fake trial, and they wanted to put her on trial for being a witch. If you watched yesterday's video, you already know how I feel about that. And the English made sure that only their friends were in charge of Joanne's trial because they wanted this girl, they wanted this girl done. D-O-N-E. And then the judges, trigger word right there, judges. And then the judges wanted to make sure, like, they could actually, like, you know, smoke her successfully. So they started asking her, like, a bunch of questions. But they weren't only questions. They were, like, trick questions. But Joanne being Joanne, she's smart. So she answers all of them correctly. And, yeah, they kind of didn't really give them much. And then the judges start criticizing Joanne because Joanne was wearing man's clothing. And the church leaders claimed that was a sin. And then the Joanne was like, I was only wearing this because I was at war. What are you on about? And the English tried scaring Joanne, but at the end, Joanne was like, yo, everything I have done was for God. Like, you can't really say anything because you're sitting behind a desk while I was actually out here defending people. Joanne was kept alone in a cell where she was treated awfully by the guards, but she was scared, but she never gave up on her faith. And then the English basically went up to Joanne and they're like, yo, if you say your visions were fake and that you were lying, we'll let you go. Bro, this is literally the Salem witch trials. This is literally the Salem witch trials. They accused her of being a witch, and then they said, if you admit to it, we're not going to smoke you, but in actuality, we will. Witch! And then they gave her a piece of paper basically saying that if she wrote it saying she lied, then they let her go. And then Joanne later reads the paper and the fine print, oh, we're lying. Then she gets back up, she's like, no, my visions were true. I'm not gonna... Basically, she signed the paper saying that she lied because she was tired and scared. But when she read it later, she had realized that judges were tricking her. And then they were sentenced her to the D word, D-E-A-T-H. And then she got up really quick and she was like, yo, I actually wasn't lying. My visions were true. But it was already too late. She had signed the paper and now they were going to execute her. And then they had told Joanne, yo, we're going to burn you alive. And then she was like, okay, bet, whatever. But Joanne wasn't scared. In fact, she actually asked them for a cross she could hold. And then, they did. I kind of find it strange that as I'm talking about this, I don't know if I'm going to put it in the video or not, but I actually started leaking red stuff from my nose. And I put my fingers in there and I was like, there's red stuff all over. And I've been coughing an insane amount, but that's probably just me though, I don't know. And then on May 30th, 1431, Joanne was sentenced to the D word by fire. And she was strapped up, and a lot of people came, a lot of people cheered, a lot of people were actually sad, and a lot of the English soldiers actually felt guilty for what they did and what they were about to witness. Okay, I think we should put the hat back on. I feel like it's safe. And before she passed away, she actually forgave her enemies, and she gave one last prayer. She forgave her enemies, and she told God to protect France. And what's crazy about it is that as the fire, rose to, execute her, while she was, being burnt alive, it was crazy because she didn't scream at all. She just looked up. Didn't scream at all. That's what witnesses did say. And then King Charles realizes his mistake and he calls for a trial to prove Joanne was innocent. And then 500 years later, she was declared as a saint. The English had thought they erased Joanne, but the opposite happened, and people remember her to this day. They actually remember her so much that a teenager started an entire YouTube channel talking about Christian stuff, and she was one of them. Till this day, she is known as one of the most greatest heroes that ever happened in France. But yeah, that was the video. That was it. We learned about Joan of the Arc. She was dope. The best female Christian ever walked this planet. But yeah, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because these videos actually take a really long time to make. But yeah, I thank you, I love you, and God bless.